grateful to be here on this virtual conference. I'm thankful to the organizing committee of Yantra 2020 for inviting me. The topic for today is History and Evolution of Iyengar Yoga and its application to mental health. Also, this conference is to honor Dr. Gangadharan. So, my salutes to you, sir. We have heard about your immense contribution to medical science and demands from your students. The topic for today is History and Evolution of Iyengar Yoga and its application to mental health. And I would be really grateful, and I am also thankful to the organizing committee for bringing about this talk, because BKS Iyengar, the legendary yogi, has been associated with asanas and pranayama. These were his tools by which he spread yoga the world over. Literally, the world has been taken by storm due to asana and pranayama. But he has been criticized all throughout his life. People have criticized him and said that asanas are physical, asanas have got to do nothing with higher aspect of yoga. So I hope this talk will dispel the ignorance in the minds of common people and even some yogis who are ignorant about the connection between asanas and mind and asanas and higher pursuits of yoga. Before we progress further, or before we understand the history and evolution, it is essential to mention about the life sketch of BKS, without which the talk will be incomplete. Guruji was born in the year 1918 in the village of Belur, about 30 kilometers away from Bangalore. His childhood was full of illnesses. He had suffered from tuberculosis, malaria, jaundice, TB, and various other ailments in his childhood. His energy was low. He could barely attend school. He could barely do his homework. He had rarely little energy for playing. And this continued till the age of 16. Due to these illnesses, he could hardly study and barely scored passing marks. Sometimes he had even been given grace marks. So that was his physical health. This point, please keep it in mind. At the age of 16, it was not that he took to yoga by choice. It was destiny which forced yoga on him. His brother-in-law, the great yogi T. Krishnamacharya, visited his place once and told him that if he came to him at his Mysore Yogashala, he would teach him yoga, and at the same time, when he was away for his talks, he could look after his sister also, to which he agreed. He had no other choice. The next aspect of his life was 2 years in Mysore under T. Krishnamacharya. He never had or rarely had 1:1 teaching from his guru, and he was taught only asanas. So remember, this was the only thing he was taught by his guru. Little knowledge of asanas for 2 years. That was his wealth on which he evolved later on. As luck would have it, Dr. V.B. Gokhale, one of the surgeons from Pune, saw one of the demonstrations of T. Krishnamacharya. And he was impressed, and he requested T. Krishnamacharya to send one of his students to Pune Deccan Gymkhana to teach yoga at the club and various schools and colleges. Now, BKS Iyengar was selected for this because he had little broken knowledge of English. So imagine a patient, or rather a student of yoga who has learned asanas only for 2 years, with no other knowledge, with no other background, shifted to Pune by destiny. The contract for teaching was for about 2-3 years, which terminated, and then the financial and economic hardship started. Guruji had a very tough time. Finances were low, even meals were not possible. Sometimes 2 meals were difficult. Sometimes he had to skip 1 meal. Sometimes even meals were not possible when he had to live only on coffee. And sometimes even a cup of coffee was luxury. He has pulled on days with just only tap water. So this continued for about 10-12 years, because his source of income after the termination of contact was 1:1 tuitions by some of his students who continued to call him. So he had to cycle miles to achieve some income for his survival. The survival was really difficult. The other group of patients who came to him were patients who had failed all other forms of treatment, patient with injuries. So this was the seed of evolution of Iyengar Yoga. With little knowledge of yoga, with no background of teaching, he worked madly on himself to find out how he could help those patients, how could he help those sufferers, how we could lessen their suffering. So for giving a relief to them, the trial was on his own body, which he would find out some asana or some modification or some innovation which would give them relief. And this was indeed successful. These financial difficulties continued for another 10-12 years. In one of his dreams, then Lord Balaji came and gave him a few grains of rice. And after that, his financial and economic hardships ended. This increased his interest in asana practice, and he practiced with more zeal and more vigor, and that continued till the ripe age of 96. In 1940s, he was introduced to Yehudi Menuhin, who had some health problems, and he had so much relief that he immediately became a student and remained a student for life. Yehudi Menuhin introduced Guruji to West, and then the rest is history. How the flame of Iyengar Yoga spread the world over, more than 6 continents, more than 30 countries, more than millions of practitioners, thousands of teachers, and various associations. Guruji also had various national and international awards. He earned Padma Shri, he earned Padma Vibhushan, and he is rightly acclaimed as a person who is responsible for spread of yoga. But Ashtanga Yoga, as it is known, it has 8 limbs. But Guruji had learnt only asanas and pranayama, and that was the tools and means for his personal evolution and how he used others to transform and get attracted to this subject. Now, he was often criticized, I said, because asanas are physical, asanas have got nothing to do with mental or higher aspects. But his own finding was different. As he practiced internally, he found out several things. He madly used to practice for several hours a day, right from the age of 18. And his discoveries and his findings and his evolution was such that his subjective experience in practice matched the scriptures, and that gave him joy. That gave him a great joy. So, Sthira Sukham Asanam, Prayatna Shaithilyam Ananda Samapatibhyam, Tatodvandvanabhigataha is what Patanjali says about asana. And Guruji realized in his subjective experiences that this is possible in all asanas. The principle of alignment is mentioned by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. In Dhyana Yoga, in 6th chapter, he mentions about meditation, in which he says, Samam Kaya Shiro Grivam Dharayan Nachalam Stiraha Samprekshana Gram Swam Dishashchanavalokayan. So the alignment of trunk, head and neck is important for meditation. And Guruji's subjective experience was that you don't only need Swastikasana, Padmasana for meditation. Any asana from Shirshasana, Sarvangasana, Kapotasana, from simplest to the most difficult of asanas, if you achieved this alignment, that resulted in Samadhi. So though asanas have been dubbed as physical, his subjective experiences were that asanas take you towards Samadhi and towards the zenith of Ashtanga Yoga. All other limbs of yoga can be realized through asana practice, was his subjective experience. So this, his personal practice and his evolution to zenith is actually Iyengar Yoga. But once you reach the zenith, a yogi is not satisfied. He strives madly for all others and commoners to achieve what he did. And this is what is there in his teaching, to help others, to help who are feeble, to help others who are sick, or to help those who are interested in the subject to achieve what he achieved. And for that, he has used his teachings, he has used various gadgets which are called as props. They include various ropes, belts, bricks, wrestlers, even the yoga mat which is used everywhere was discovery of Guruji. So these props help patients who are sick and feeble to achieve the yogic benefit and the spiritual benefit. So Iyengar Yoga has evolved a lot and it is spread all over, and it is associated, as the Oxford Dictionary says, that it is a yoga named after a legendary Indian yogi Iyengar. and it is associated with the use of props, belts, bricks, and blankets, and is associated with symmetry and alignment. So, this is a correct definition. So, asanas using these props and asanas this using alignment has caused a storm all over the world. Now, the topic for today is Iyengar Yoga and its application to mental health. Now, friends, as we all of us know, that mental problems are growing world over. More than 300 million people suffer mental disorders annually. Today's modern life is associated with stress and strain at every stage of life. Stress is there in school students, stress is there for the exam, stress is there for getting your jobs, stress is there in the office, stress is there in the personal relations, stress is there everywhere. In fact, modern society can be described as a stressful society, and this has an effect on the mind. So this stress causes anxiety, irritability, restlessness, insomnia, dejection, depression, alteration in interpersonal relation, reduction in productivity, and you name this. So many problems are there associated with modern life. So, if there is any tool which can lessen the suffering of the modern society, that would be welcome. And asanas, as presented by Guruji, certainly would fit the bill. All the stress disorders can be helped by so called physical asanas. We should know what we mean by mind. The dictionary says that mind is that element in a human being which is associated with thinking, feeling, and desires. This is what the dictionary says. Now, what is mental health? Mental health is defined by WHO as a state of well-being. It is not only absence of mental disorders, but it is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his capabilities, is able to cope up with normal stresses of life, and is able to work fruitfully and productively, and to communicate, or rather to contribute fruitfully to his society. This is a very, very subjective definition with due regards to WHO. What is the individual? What are his capability? What is the coping ability? What is normal state? And what is contribution fruitfully? These are not explained properly. But in yogic science, these are all the abilities which are enhanced in all individuals. That's why yoga, especially asanas, play an important role in mental health, and that would be elucidated as the talk progresses. Having understood the concept of mind by the Western dictionary and by WHO, let us understand the yogic concept of mind. We should understand how the human embodiment is studied by the yogic science. Yogic science says that we are composed of three bodies: the Karana Sharira or the soul, the Sthula Sharira or gross body, which can be seen, which is the which is composed of two arms, Panchakarmendriya, the two arms, two legs, the organ of speech, the genital and excretory organs, Pancha Jnanendriya, which is the sense organs, the eyes, the nose, the ears, the tongue, and the skin, and their Panchamahabhutas, which are the Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu, and Akash, and Pancha Tanmatras, which is Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Rupa, and Gandha. So this comprises the cross body. The Sukshma Sharira, which cannot be seen and exists all over, is labeled as Chitta. Now Westerners loosely translate Chitta as mind, but according to yogic science, Chitta is a composite of Manas, the mind, the Buddhi or the intelligence, and the Ahankara or ego. Now the Manas is the outward layer of the Chitta, that is restless, dual in nature, attached to the world by senses, and is constantly drawn outside and seeks sensual pleasures. To terminate this outwardliness and draw the mind inwards is pratyahara, and thence the internal journey towards the soul begins via dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. All this is possible with asana has been the subjective experience of Iyengar and his boon and gift to the world via his teachings. Now, asanas are samadhi, and what Guruji says is that the body is the bow, asana is the arrow, and target is the soul. In a perfect asana, the target is struck, meaning that you are one with the soul. And this is his subjective description of samadhi. Asana also is a bhakti marga according to Guruji, because he says that body is the temple, don't neglect your body. And asanas are my prayers. So this is how the mind has to be tamed for its inward journey towards the soul. If the mind is pleasure seeking, if you don't tame it, what will happen? There will be a lot of friction, and there will be a lot of disturbance, and there will be dejection. So you have to understand that yogic practice and yogic path is not very, very rosy at all. You have seen the suffering which Guruji had in his early 10, 15, 20 years. That financial hardships ended, but other sufferings did continue. Arjuna on Kurukshetra developed depression, anxiety, panic reaction, and dejection, and that was called as Arjuna Vishad. And his Vishad became a yoga, Arjuna Vishad Yoga, which gave us Bhagavad Gita. Patanjali says in Samadhipada that a yogic practitioner is bound to feel depressed, dejected, is going to have labored breathing and trembling of the body. Dukkha daurmanasya angame jayatva shvasa prashvasa vikshepa sahabhuvaha. So these difficulties will be faced by yogic practitioners, and they have to be counteracted by tat pratishedhartham ekatatvabhyasaha by Patanjali. Lord Krishna says, as the mind is very difficult to tame, but by abhyasa and vairagya, you can tame it to reach towards the mental health. And the peak of mental health is equanimity, equilibrium, equipoise, where a yogi is neither affected by heat or cold, honor or dishonor, pleasure or displeasure. So you reach a non-dual state. Now let us understand the reaction between the mind and the body. The mind and brain are intimately connected, but they are separate. As the mind is pleasure seeking, it tries to get pleasure. And how does it derive this pleasure? That is through the brain. Now mind gets pleasure by various chemicals which act on various regions of the brain, and they cause a sensation of bliss, apparent bliss. And that's why we know that people take to nicotine. Tobacco smoking is common, tobacco chewing is quite common, people take to alcohol, people take to various drugs to achieve that sensation of bliss. And we know how common a problem of addiction is. So mind and brain connection will explain the proximity of the mind. The brain has the substance, brain has the receptors, brain has the chemicals, and brain has the neurotransmitters and circuits to produce a sensation of reward or bliss, which is exploited by a tamasic mind for pleasure. Now, what do healthy people do? They also derive pleasure. And how do they derive this pleasure or sense of well-being? That is by exercising. So remember that physical exercise gives you a sense of well-being. This effect was known for centuries, but the putative chemicals were found recently, and we know that exercise generates endogenous morphines, which are called as endorphins and encephalins, and they act on certain receptors in the brain, and they produce a sense of well-being. Now, in addition to this sense of well-being, there is a sensation or production of excitation and irritability and anger, which is so common in athletes and various sports persons. Now, understand this correlation between the brain, body, and mind. The body, by its activity, generates chemicals which act on the mind and which causes a sensation of pleasure, which is exploited by the brain for its well-being in exercise. Now, a yogi uses his body as a tool to generate such chemicals or to generate such neurotransmitter or to alter various transmitters and their receptors and their regions in the brain. Which of those transmitters are there are not known. Which of the circuits are involved are not known now, and may be known after a few centuries, or probably may never be known. because there is no experimental rat, there is no experimental guinea pig or experimental monkey which has brain and mind. So remember that a yogi, or what Guruji did was experiment madly on himself using his body as tools. And as his practices evolved, he has given the mental effects of asanas. So asanas modulate the mind as per your requirement. If a person is extremely restless, irritable, gets agitated soon, hyper responsive, hyper person as we say, he can be calmed down by a certain set of asanas. Now it's impossible in the short span of time to give the list of asanas, how to do them correctly with the props so that a person can have effects. But certain asanas I will name, that Adho Mukha Svanasana with ropes, which is a prop, and bolster for head support, Uttanasana with head support. If you have tension headaches, which is a common psychosomatic manifestation, an application of simple crepe bandage around the temple region is sufficient to give you relief. If you are dejected or if your mental energy is low, that can be alleviated by certain practices. If you are depressed, your mind can be elevated, so all the mind can be modulated towards neutrality, and over a period of time your mind changes gradually. These mental changes are slow to occur. Remember that asanas cannot be used as prescription. If I am nervous, I have insomnia, I have restlessness, as a doctor I will prescribe benzodiazepine which will act on GABA receptors. If I am depressed, we know that serotonin is involved in elevation of mood. So we use drug which will either elevate the serotonin or act on the serotonin receptors. So similarly, asanas will work on various body parts to produce elation of the mind. So the chest region is the region of the soul, Hrudaya Chitta Samvite. So if this region is opened, if the space is opened, if the Akash Tattva is opened, and this is restored to its correct place, then the effect on the mind is lessening of depression. So depression can be reduced as and how you want. The mind can be modulated by asanas using props. So this is a great boon of Guruji. If you want your mind to transform, you require a long-term practice, and the practice of inversions for yoga practitioners is a must. The Shirshasana and Sarvangasa are the king of asanas, and they produce those effects on the mind by acting profoundly on the nervous system, by acting on the endocrine system, and keeping the overall organism healthy. So without Shirshasana and Sarvangasana, there can be no mental effects of asana practice. How do asanas work? By yogic mechanisms, by working on putative neurotransmitters, on various neurotransmissions, is a medical analysis. But how asanas work on the mind? Asanas work on the mind by opening these subtle channels which carry the prana or energy. They are called as nadis. So they open various nadis, and inversions in Shirshasana, the action is on the center spine. In Sarvangasana, the action is on the right and left sides of the spine, and we know that Ida, Pingala and Sushumna run in the center of the spine. In advanced asanas, you get access and open the space in the anterior spinal region, which is the site of chakras. And these chakras, or opening of the chakras or activation of these chakras, has a profound effect on mental health. So as you practice regularly, the long-term effects of asana practice on your mind profoundly alter your personality. Your thinking changes, your desires lessen, and you achieve various yogic traits. You become friendly with others, you are compassionate with others, you are merciful to others, you develop less and less of malice towards others, and you become helpful to others. So people will start seeking your company. Now if you are working in a job, you will be able to face stress more effectively. If your stress is less, if your mental and physical abilities are increased, you will definitely work productively and fruitfully. If your stress is less, you become a better human, a better professional, so you can contribute to your house, you can contribute to your profession, you can contribute to your society, you can contribute to the nation, and you can contribute to the world in general and become a better human being. So remember, friends, that asanas are not physical. That is a misnomer or misunderstanding which was prevalent. It was widely used to attack Guruji throughout his life, but undeterred like a yogi, he continued his practice. Guruji has said, I have been built up by asanas. This science I cannot quit, and I will practice till my last breath, which he did, and I was a witness to it. Till the ripe age of 96, he continued asana practice, the anga of Ashtanga Yoga. Asana is an anga of Ashtanga Yoga, which is neglected, abused, and derided. He has placed it rightfully at its proper place. So, with this talk, if people get an idea that asanas are not physical, yes, the exercise which asanas give is one of the most difficult form of exercise, but they are mental, they are neurological, they are endocrine, they are they are emotional, they are intellectual, and they are spiritual. So they give what is called as holistic health. So I stop my talk here. If there are any questions and answers, I will be open for answers. Thanks a lot.